Thank you, Mr. Vassar. We're going to go back to Exhibit AG 170. Mr. Arroyo, if you could bring up page Brickman 201 again. We're going to go back one step. And if, Mr. Arroyo, if you could highlight or zoom in on the two texts at the bottom again. So, Mr. Vassar, my apologies. My colleague Amy Hilton informs me that I did not, in fact, get the joke. The joke here is this is a coloring book. It says, and I encourage anyone to look it up, it's the Going Rouge Sarah Palin Rogue Coloring and Activity Book, right?
That sounds right.
Does that look like it?
I don't recall exactly, but that could be accurate.
And the joke is that Sarah Palin is so dumb that she can't spell rogue, right?
That wasn't my understanding of the joke. I believe, my recollection is that when I found a coloring book about going rogue, that was why I sent it to this group chat. I don't recall any specific reference to Sarah Palin.
That's the context of the joke, but the joke of the coloring book here is it's supposed to say going rogue, and it says going rouge, and it's Sarah Palin can't spell rogue, LOL, right?
I can't really see your phone, but I'll take your point.
Would you like me to approach so you can see it?
That's
May I, Your
up
Honor?
to the president. I see it.
That's the one, right?
I can't recall specifically if that is the one that's linked in this text message.
But the context of the joke within the text chain is it's about you going rogue. And the reference is an oblique reference to Ken Paxton calling you rogue employees, right?
Yes, sir.
And so the same information that got you very upset yesterday about being called a rogue employee, looks like 3 weeks or so after it happened, you're joking on a text chat with your friends about it and showing them the Going Rouge coloring book, right?
That's
Do I have it?
what happened. Yes, sir.
There's nothing less funny than someone who explains the joke, but I think I have it now, right?
I'm sorry, say that again.
I think I have it now, right? That was the context of the joke. I explained it. True?
Yes, at the time, circulating an Amazon link to a coloring book about going rogue was what had happened.
All right, Mr. Arroyo, if you could advance to page Brickman 203. If you could start, Mr. Arroyo, with the blue text down and zoom in on that. The text from Blake Brickman says, being fired will make you a cool kid, right?
That's what he says.
David Maxwell gives a thumbs up and sunglasses emoji, right?
Yes, I see that.
Ryan Vassar responds, Brent told me today that he was, quote, completing his investigation. He said it's all based on the documents he reviewed. I told him the cold documents may tell one story, but 10 months of loved experience tell the rest of the story. And then Ryan corrects his typo and says lived. It's his lived experience that tells the story, right?
Yes, I see that.
And Darren McCartney says, definitely not loved. Ryan Bangert said, he also asked me how soon it was after RV received the signed CAMAC contract that Jeff and I learned about it. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
You are RV, right?
Yes.
And what Brent Webster was trying to investigate at the time is what we discussed yesterday, right, Mr. Vassar, that apparently at some point you received the signed contract with Ken Paxton's signature on it with Brandon Kamak, right?
Yes, I did.
And Brent Webster was trying to discover when Jeff Mateer and Ryan Bangert learned about that contract as part of his investigation, true?
That's my understanding. He didn't ask me when they learned about it, but he asked me when I received a copy of the contract.
Okay. And Ryan Bangert responds, he said that was one missing piece of his, quote, investigation, close quote. Lacey May says, he's the worst. Let's turn the page if you would. And Brent Webster, he's the new guy at the office, right?
Yes, sir.
He's been working there a little over 3 weeks maybe, or 3 weeks?
I think his first day was October 4th, and if these are on the 26th, then that would be accurate.
Okay. So next page, if you could give me, just zoom in on the text if you can, Mr. Arroyo. No, just all of the text together if you can. Give me the first one at the top too. Very kind. Ryan Vassar posts what looks like, I believe that is the emoji. I don't know how else to refer to it. And then David Maxwell says, I never created any documents. He wanted me to conduct an illegal investigation. Right?
That's right.
Do you know what he meant?
No, sir.
And you posted a meme. And why don't you tell the jury what your meme says?
It says, never interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake.
Who is your enemy?
I didn't have an enemy at the time. It was a meme just sent in the conversation.
Sure, but there's a context, right?
Well, the context is Brent Webster was investigating us when it was General Paxton who was abusing the powers of the office to benefit Nate Paul.
And so here the context is Brent Webster is the enemy, yes?
No, sir. It's Brent Webster is investigating the wrong person or the wrong people.
Okay. Well, what's the mistake that's being made, that's being referenced in your meme here?
Oh, that would be the fact that he is investigating us, not General Paxton.
Brent Webster's making the mistake?
Yes, sir.
And you don't want to interrupt Brent Webster, right?
That was the joke. I was not in the office, so I couldn't have interrupted him if I wanted to.
You hadn't been in the office in a very long time. You were working from home, right?
No, sir. I was placed on investigative leave during this period and surrendered my official agency phone and laptop and was not permitted to access the building or work.
It seems to suggest, this meme seems to suggest to me in context that you think Brent Webster is the enemy who's making a mistake. Is that true or untrue?
I don't know what it seems to you, but I explained I didn't have an enemy at the time. I was not fighting Brent Webster.
Okay. David Maxwell posts a thumbs up and a laughing emoji. Lacey May says, so another candidate in Wilco came up. Wilco is Williamson County, right?
Yes.
And at this time, Lacey Mace is running for office, true?
I believe so.
What's she running for?
I don't recall.
So another candidate in Wilco came up to me yesterday and said, so I understand you're acquainted with Brent Webster. Let me tell you about Mr. Webster. He's lazy and he's a liar. I'm glad you don't have to work for him. And then she walked away. And you said, that's awesome. Right?
Yes, sir.
Why was that awesome?
Because I had never heard anything about Brent Webster, and to have someone approach Lacey and give their personal experience of interacting with Brent Webster, I thought was informative.
Mr. Vassar, I'm going to show you another text thread that you didn't produce, okay? But you're part of. Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes, you may.
I'm marking this exhibit 1006, okay? Are you part of this text thread?
Yes, sir.
Have you seen it before?
Yes, I have seen it before as a participant on the thread. I've not seen these documents or this exhibit before.
Mr. President, we move for admission of AG Exhibit 1006.
Any objection?
And to be clear,
I'm
Mr.
sorry,
I
I
have
didn't
just a
hear.
moment. I don't believe this is one previously that's been marked, so if I could have just a moment to look at it.
Yes, take a moment.
Your Honor, may I inquire of counsel, is it a series of communications with the different deputy chiefs? It's just a long one. I'm trying to save time if I could.
Mr. Hardin, yes, this is a text thread that was produced by Mark Penley in response to your subpoena.
I have no objection.
Admit Exhibit 1006. Is that the correct number, Mr. Little? 1006.
It is, Mr.
Into
President.
evidence?
May I proceed?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Vassar, take a look at, and Mr. Arroyo, would you please bring up Exhibit 1006 so the jury can see it with us? Go to the first page of that if you would. You're on the second. There you go. All right, thank you. Mr. Vassar, you post a picture into this text thread, right?
Yes, sir.
And you're posting a picture of an email from Ken Paxton to a group chat, yes?
Yes, sir.
And Ken Paxton telling you, I did sign the outside counsel contract with Camac Law Firm, PLLC, yes?
That's right.
And who is, if you can tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, who is on this text thread?
It's myself, David Maxwell, Ryan Bangert, Blake Brickman, and Lacey Mace, just going by their...
And this is hard to tell with iPhones, but this document was produced by Mark Penley, so these are screenshots of Mark Penley's phone. Do you understand he's on the thread too?
Okay, I don't see him. I understand that now. He wasn't listed in the little bubbles at the top, but I understand.
Well, my experience with this, obviously I'm not testifying, but you know how on iPhones when you're on a group chat, it doesn't necessarily put you in the little circle.
Right.
If it's your phone, right?
Okay.
So Mark is on this thread?
It appears so.
Okay. So Lacey Mace, second text, new group. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
And the date of this, just to be clear, it begins on October 2 of 2020, right? Right after you went to the FBI?
That's right.
All right. Let's see what you're talking about. Turn to the next page, if you would. The next page is a picture from Ryan Vassar. It says, silence unknown callers. And he says, y'all, and you say, I'm sorry, it's a text from you. You say, you show them a picture of the silence unknown callers feature on your phone. You say, y'all should probably turn this feature on, right?
That's right.
And why do you say that?
To avoid receiving a phone call from a blocked number or an unknown number that was unanticipated or unexpected.
And you're worried about media calls at this point, right?
It could have been any calls, any unknown or unidentified calls.
And Ryan Bangert says, how did I not know about that until now? And Lacey May says, excellent. The next, and let's turn the page, if you would, Mr. Arroyo, to page Penley 9. You say, we should consider notifying other DEPs before Monday. Notifying them of what?
The fact that we had gone to report General Paxton to law enforcement about the facts that we had determined.
That's not what you say.
Excuse me, I object to the sidebar and testifying, Your Honor. He can ask questions, but not state as if he's testifying. Thank you.
Lacey Mace responds to you about the new FA, and she means first assistant, right?
Yes, I believe so.
And then she says, I don't feel like that's our announcement to make. And you say, resigning. Resigning.
Right. So
what you said, we should consider notifying other DEPs before Monday. It's about resigning. Yes?
That was an element of it, but most of it was about going to law enforcement to report General Paxton's activities that we had determined.
That's not what you say in this text thread, is it?
No, what I just explained is that is part of the conversation that we're having at the time.
As of October 2, you were planning to resign as a group, yes?
No, sir. We were discussing what we should do.
And you were saying we should consider notifying the other deputies before Monday about resigning. True?
That's right. In addition to disclosing to them that we had gone to law enforcement to report General Paxton's activities.
Ryan Banger responds, I don't think we tell them until we have a fully vetted plan of action. Next page. Blake Brickman says, has anybody updated Johnny? Who's Johnny?
You have to ask Blake, but I interpreted that as Johnny Sutton.
Is he representing all of you at this point?
Yes, sir.
Who's paying for all that, by the way?
Well, we are.
Did you pay for it out of your savings?
I have not paid Mr. Sutton.
Whoa. Who has?
Nobody has. He's agreed to bill us at a future date.
What future date?
You'd have to ask him.
You're telling me that an attorney, a very experienced, prominent criminal defense attorney, decided to do this for free, for you, for 3 years. Is that right?
No, sir. It's not for free.
What's the arrangement?
We will pay him for the services that he's rendered to us.
Is he billing you hourly?
He's recording his hours, is my understanding. I have not received a bill from him.
And he hasn't been paid by any of you yet. Is that right?
I have not paid him. I'm not aware of whether any other individuals have paid him.
And so is the plan for you to achieve this settlement through the adoption of the Texas legislature and then pay off your criminal attorney who is trying to help you not be labeled co-conspirators? Is that the plan?
No, that's never been discussed.
When are you going to have the money?
Ideally, when I have enough money, I can pay him.
But you've never been sent a bill. You don't even know what to pay him.
That's right.
Is everybody paying equally? Is it pro rata?
Again, I'm not sure what other people's arrangements have been, but I have not received a bill from Mr. Sutton, and I have not paid him yet.
How did you find this fellow, by the way?
Mr. Sutton?
Yes.
His name had been discussed with Mr. Matier and Mr. Bangert and Mr. McCarty about the best person to call before we had met with law enforcement.
Who suggested him first?
I don't recall exactly.
Did you understand Mr. Sutton to be a former U.S. attorney?
Yes, sir.
In whose administration, if you would? Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
I believe it was George W. Bush's administration.
Have you ever heard the expression, there are no coincidences in Austin?
I may have. I don't recall it right now.
Next text you write, or in response to Blake Brickman, you say, not me, meaning you haven't updated Johnny Sutton yet, right?
That's right.
Ryan Bangert says, not with the latest. He is aware that Jeff resigned, but not the new FAAH or FAAG. Is that supposed to be First Assistant Attorney General?
That's right.
Okay. Next page, if you would. You write, to-do list. 1, update Johnny. That's Johnny Sutton, right?
That's right.
And number 2 is have someone call the new meat, right?
That's right.
Who's the new meat?
I have no idea. I don't recall who I was referring to at that time.
You're talking about new employees at the Attorney General's office, right?
I'm not sure.
Can't tell.
I presume that would have been the people that I was referring to, just based on being in the office and working in the office.
Number 3 is discuss with Luis. Tell the ladies and gentlemen of this jury who Luis is.
At the time, Mr. Luis Saenz was the chief of staff for Governor Abbott.
What were you going to be discussing with Governor Abbott's chief of staff?
It was not my discussion. It was a to-do list that members of the group had contributed to. So I did not meet, I did not talk to, I did not confer with Mr. Saenz.
Who did?
I don't know. I believe Mr. Banger and Mr. Matier met with Luis, but I don't know where or when.
Well, I want to be super clear about the timeline, okay? Without telling you anything that's been testified to in this trial. Are you aware of any type of meeting between Mr. Mateer and Mr. Bangert and the governor's office on the day of the FBI report?
I can't say that I recall. I don't know when or where they may have met.
But the discussion that's contemplated in your text message with Louise Sines, that was poor syntax, let me try again. The discussion with Louise Sines that's contemplated in your text message is not talking about that, because this is on October 2. So this is talking about a new meeting with the governor's chief of staff, right?
Again, I don't know for sure. I wasn't part of that meeting. I don't know when it happened or where it occurred. And I don't recall if this was referring to that specific meeting or a subsequent meeting.
Number 4 on your to-do list, coordinate group office cleanout, right?
Yes, sir.
You are planning as a group to clean out your offices, yes?
Again, that was the conversation that we were having at the time.
But at some point in time, I'm sure you retained an employment lawyer and someone advised you that you need to stick around and make them fire you, right?
I did hire an employment lawyer.
And at some point in time, after meeting the employment lawyer, you decided the best thing to do was stick around and make somebody fire you, yes?
I don't recall if that was the decision that was reached with my employment lawyer.
Your plan on October 2 was to coordinate a group office cleanout, yes?
That was the conversation we were having, again, about options, discussing continuity of the office, and whether it was an option for us to resign.
The next text is from, it appears to me to be Mark Penley, because this is his text thread. It says, Ryan B., did you find the sets of subpoenas in my office? Do you see that?
I see that.
These are the grand jury subpoenas, yes?
I would presume so. You'd have to ask Mark which subpoenas he was referring to.
Okay. Ryan Bangert responds, I have not been down to grab them yet. I likely will get them in the morning. Let's turn, and he says, I know Johnny has, and let's turn to the next page, them, so we can always get a copy from him, worst comes to worst. I'm apparently not locked out yet. And then Ryan posts a tweet from Lauren McGaughy, right?
Yes, I see that.
And who's Lauren McGaughy?
She's a reporter for the Dallas Morning News.
You see her up here? Do you see her back there?
I don't know. I've never met her, so I'm not sure.
Never met her? Well, she was on top of it this day. She's got a tweet here. It says, I heard First Assistant Attorney General Jeff Mateer announced today he's leaving the agency to return to First Liberty. And then the next text from Ryan B. is, Lauren McGaughy knows. She's a vigilant reporter, isn't she?
I'm not advised.
That was not public at that point in time, right?
I'm not sure either. I am not sure of the timeline between when this was sent or when it looks like the tweet occurred on October 2nd at 7:15 p.m.
All right, let's turn the page if you would. You write, what she needs now is a statement from First Liberty, right?
That's right.
What Lauren, the Dallas Morning News reporter, needs now is a statement from First Liberty is what you're saying, yes?
That's what I would have suggested, yes, sir.
Yeah, and so, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Vassar, it kind of looks like you're trying to shape the media narrative around what's going on. Is that true?
No, sir.
But what you're saying here is we should try to get her a statement from First Liberty, right?
Absolutely not.
That's not what you mean?
No, sir.
What did you mean? Just tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
That was my personal observation of another piece of information that she could obtain was a statement from First Liberty, which is where I understand Mr. Mateer was going to work.
And Ryan Bangert responds, or Alejandro can just give our statement. Who's Alejandro?
He was the communications director at the office at the time.
Okay. And you say unless KP is holding it or Alejandro is keeping McGaughy on the blacklist. What's the blacklist?
It's my understanding at the office that there was a list of certain reporters that were handled differently than other reporters.
Next text. On second thought, let the media feeding frenzy start. Who said that?
That was Ryan Bangert.
The same Ryan Bangert who's testified in this trial? That guy?
Yes, sir.
So on October 2, he's saying, let the media feeding frenzy start. True?
Yes, that's what this says.
And this is, how many days is this after you went to the FBI with no evidence?
Well, to clarify, the absence of evidence that I was referring to is documents. What we went with is our
Not responsive. Object, not responsive, Your Honor.
Sustained. I'm sorry, I did not hear you.
Why did Ryan Vassar want to start a media feeding frenzy on October 2?
You'd have to ask him that. I'm not sure.
I'd like you to, Mr. Roy, if you could go to page Penley 20 at the bottom of, it's hard to read Bates label at the bottom right. Right, stop there. I want you to look at I want you to zoom in on the last two texts on this thread, if you would. Lacey May says, stand down on that. I'm going to ignore that. It says, Missy told me he was in JM's office, blank, and there's a redacted name. Blank was actually in the office while he was there. Mr. Penley redacted this name. Who is that?
I'm not sure. I don't recall who that would have been. That was a message from, looks like Lacey.
And if you could, Mr. Arroyo, advance to page Penley 25. And you say, we need a statement, right?
That's right.
And you wrote a long one. So look to the bottom of that page. Mr. Arroyo, next page. Next page after that. Next page after that. Next page after that. Talk about not tiring in your pursuit for justice. Justice will be served. We refuse to resign and will not be intimidated. You say all that, right?
Among other things, yes, sir.
But you wrote that, yes?
Yes, sir.
Why did you want to do that? Why did you want to release a statement?
Because it was in response to the Attorney General's allegations that we had authorized the activities that he was directing and supervising throughout the year that related to Nate Paul.
And no one on this thread agrees with you, right?
Well, the statement was not issued. I don't know that anyone disagreed with the content, but no one decided to issue it.
Next page, if you would, please. Lacey May says, it's likely that a very talented crisis comms person is working very hard on our behalf.
Counselor, hold on. It's not on the screen yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. If you would, Mr. Arroyo, that middle text.
Up there it is.
Middle text says, it's likely that a very talented crisis comms person is working very hard on our behalf as we speak, right?
Yes, I see that.
Who is that?
I have no idea. You'd have to ask Lacey.
Were you paying for her? Were you paying for a crisis comms person?
No, sir.
Did you ever ask her who she was talking about?
Pardon me, Your Honor. Can I ask the witness to speak a little closer to the microphone? Thank you.
Yes, please.
Did you ever ask her who she was talking about?
No, sir.
Okay. Next, I want to move to the topic of what I'll call the mystery of the altered letterhead, okay? I've got a new document for you. This is marked as Exhibit AG 1007. May I approach, Mr. President?
Yes, you may.
Please review this email thread, Mr. Vassar.
One moment. Mr. Hardin, have you had an opportunity to look at it?
I have no objection.
We move for admission of AG 1007, Mr. President.
It is admitted to evidence.
Mr. Vassar, review this thread, please.
I see it. It's an email that was printed by Brent Webster. It was sent from Lacey Mays to myself on October 1st, 2020.
Mr. Arroyo, if you would, please. Exhibit AG 1007. Zoom in on the text, if you would, please. All right. I want to make sure we have this in perfect context, all right? The earlier email in the thread is from a woman named Brittany Hornsey, yes?
Yes.
And who is that, Mr. Vassar?
At the time, she was executive assistant to Jeff Mateer.
Jeff Mateer only? He's got his own assistant?
I believe she also supported Ryan Vassar, but I'm not sure exactly.
Okay. And she writes an email on September 30th at 6:16 p.m., yes?
Yes.
And to whom did she write it?
To Ms. Mays.
And what is the subject?
It says letter.
All right, put this in proper timeline for the jury. At 6:16 p.m. on September 30th of 2020, you have already made your report to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, yes?
Yes.
And Brittany Hornsey is emailing something to Lacey Mace, yes?
That's what this indicates, yes.
In October 1, the next day, 30 days hath October, yes, the next day, 12:09 p.m., Lacey Mace forwards that item to you, yes?
Yes.
Let's show the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what that item is, Mr. Vassar. Next page.
Do you want me to identify it? Or was there a question?
What is it?
It says a draft 2. It's dated September 29th, 2020. It has the Attorney General seal on the top of it, and it has no body, but it is a draft signature block of the executive deputies.
What else do you notice about it?
There are some signatures and some that are not. I think that's it.
Anything else that you notice about it? Anything missing, perhaps?
Not offhand, no, sir.
The Attorney General's name has been removed from the letterhead, hasn't it?
No, sir. As I explained yesterday, the agency has different letterhead. This is a different letterhead.
Do you understand that Brittany Hornsey was interviewed by Brent Webster as part of this case?
I'm not advised, but...
Have you heard that Brittany Hornsey was intentionally told by Lacey Mace?
I've not heard that.
Stop. I didn't finish my question.
Sorry.
Hold on a second. Have you heard that Brittany Hornsey was intentionally told by Lacey Mace to bring her the letterhead without Ken Paxton's name on it?
I'm not sure that I have ever heard that Lacey had instructed Brittany to send the letterhead.
Had you ever before written a letter on agency letterhead? Well, skip it. This, of course, letterhead was being used in the letter by the so-called whistleblowers to notify certain parties of certain things, yes?
That's right.
I want to go back in time a little bit. We've been talking a lot about October, but I want to go back to the hiring of Brandon Kamak, okay? Ask you a series of questions that I think are going to call for a yes/no answer. Just do your best, okay? You were responsible for overseeing outside counsel contracts, correct?
For the Office of the Attorney General, that was one of the areas, yes, sir.
Yes. And the agency reviews and approves around 900 of them every 2 years, true?
Yes, across the state.
Okay.
Not for the office.
I want to put things in proper context. Brandon Kamak would have been one outside counsel out of about 900 between 2019 and 2020. True?
Yes. On average, yes. There's about 900 outside counsel contracts that the agency processes on behalf of other state agencies. The office itself might have 2 to 5 outside counsel contracts at a time, is my recollection.
So if the suggestion is that Nate Paul had such a chokehold on the Attorney General's office that he had consumed so many resources that the office wasn't really doing much else, that wouldn't be true, would it?
The focus of Nate Paul's related activities were becoming increasingly...
Subject non-responsive, Mr. President.
Sustained.
It is not true, Mr. Vassar, that Nate Paul had such a stranglehold on the Office of Attorney General that nothing else was getting done, right?
I wouldn't characterize it that way.
All right, let me ask a better question then. Yes or no? Did Nate Paul have such a stranglehold on the Office of the Attorney General that other things weren't getting done?
I don't think I can answer a yes or no to that question.
Are you sure?
I am sure.
So you can't say yes, right? It's not true. Can't say yes, right?
The degree to which Nate Paul's relationship with General Paxton and the activities that we were asking...
Objection, Your Honor. He can't put these... Object to him being forced to answer yes or no. The rules don't require that from a witness if they can't. And he's trying to testify in these questions. When he doesn't get what he wants, he asks him to just give yes or no. That question, if you look at it, we have no idea what he means by stranglehold, as an example. He should not be required to answer yes or no before he knows what this man means. That's my objection.
First, I think you had an objection first, then you had an objection.
Yes, sir.
I believe so. Okay. The court reporters, I hope you were able to get that. We had objections over each other. So first of all, we will overrule your objection. We will sustain your objection. To the best of your ability, Mr. Vassar, if you can answer yes or no, continue.
Try to ask a better question. How many lawyers are there roughly at the Office of the Attorney General?
Roughly 800 lawyers.
How many of them ever touched anything related to Nate Paul? How many of the 800 ever touched anything related to Nate Paul?
I could speculate there may have been 15 lawyers, maybe 15 to 20.
How many cases does the Attorney General's office have going on at any time?
Generally, I think it's around 900,000 or maybe 50,000 cases.
900,000 or 50,000?
Well,
help me out here.
I was going back to the outside counsel numbers of 900 every 2 years, so I apologize. I was not in the civil litigation division, so I'm not sure how many litigation cases are active at any general moment.
How many? What's your best understanding of how many civil litigation matters are going at the Office of the Attorney General at any given time?
Possibly, it could be 20,000 active cases at a time.
20,000, right? And how many of those 20,000 cases involve Nate Paul?
I would have no direct knowledge of how many of those cases would.
So I think we've been over this a lot. I don't want to burden us with it too much longer. There's a layering of signatures and approvals as part of the policy for hiring outside counsel. Yes?
Yes, sir.
But of course, you know that the law says that the elected Attorney General appoints outside counsel, right? Just him, right?
No, sir.
All right, Mr. Arroyo, this may be challenging for you to find, but please bring up section 402.0212 of the Texas Government Code. Eric on the spot. All right, give me the title and section A, please. Have you ever read this before?
Yes, sir.
Let's read it together. It says, except as authorized by other law, a contract for legal services between an attorney other than a full-time employee of the agency and a state agency in the executive department other than an agency established by the Texas Constitution must be approved by the Attorney General to be valid, right?
Yes, sir.
That's pretty clear, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Doesn't have to be approved by you. Doesn't have to be approved by Jeff Mateer. Doesn't have to be approved by Michelle Price. Doesn't have to be approved by Lacey Mace or Ryan Bangert or anybody else but the guy who got 4.2 million votes, right?
It was a standard practice for approvals, but yes.
Heck, non-responsive.
Sustained.
Right?
Your initial question was whether the law allows General Paxton to appoint outside, or
Heck, non-responsive, Mr. President.
Sustained.
Would you like to have the court reporter read the question back to you?
Your first question about whether the law allows.
Object, non-responsive.
Sustained.
Yes, please read the question back to me.
We could not hear that. Can you repeat that?
I'll be happy to repeat it. Outside counsel contracts don't have to be approved by you. They don't have to be approved by Jeff Mateer. They don't have to be approved by Michelle Price or Lacey Mace or Ryan Bangert or anyone but the guy who got 4.2 million votes, right?
That's right.
Thank you. Now, with regard to criminal matters, you had a call with General Paxton, true?
Specific to the outside counsel process, yes, but in general criminal matters, no, I never spoke to General Paxton.
Yes, just about the outside counsel process, yes?
Yes.
Okay. And he said, and I quote, "Tell me about the approval process." And you walked him through it, right?
Yes, sir.
Remember, you're the lawyer to lawyers, right?
That's right.
And he was asking for your advice. Yes?
He was asking me to explain the outside counsel process.
Now, this next question is very important. Ken Paxton asked you, and I quote, "Can the agency retain outside counsel in a criminal matter?" Yes?
That's right.
He asked for your advice, right?
Yes.
He didn't kick down your door and say, "Ryan, this is what we're doing," did he?
Not in that conversation.
He asked you for your advice, and you gave him your advice, true?
Yes.
You called two candidates, Joe Brown and Brandon Kamak, correct?
Yes, sir.
You got each of them to run a conflict check, true?
Yes, sir.
You drafted a contract for Joe Brown, didn't you?
No, sir. I sent Mr. Brown the template, the outside counsel contract template, with no scope. There was no scope of work, no rate of pay, and his follow-up email to me was, "Would you like me to draft the scope?"
And you said, "Joe, the malpractice issue may be one that we can resolve. We will draft the scope and we'll send you a draft agreement with the relevant details as soon as possible," right?
That's right.
You got each of them to run a conflicts check, Brown and Kamak, right?
Yes.
Now, in your estimation, the Nate Paul investigative referral from the Travis County District Attorney's Office was, and I quote, "an ordinary criminal referral with ordinary investigative issues." True?
That was my perception, yes, sir.
Your conversations with First Assistant Jeff, actually, let me press pause here. After your testimony yesterday, did you go back and watch the video of yourself giving testimony?
No, sir.
Okay. Your conversations with First Assistant Jeff Mateer were that you could make a legal argument that this outside counsel contract with CAMAC was okay because you had a referral and you had separate authority to engage outside counsel. True?
Yes, sir.
And you drafted CAMAC's contract, true?
Yes, sir.
Now, tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, because I think we all want to understand the executive action memorandum. The whole process or whole idea of using what's called workflow in DocuSign for these outside counsel contracts was your idea, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
Doesn't date back to John Corden or Greg Abbott, does it?
No, sir.
You're the progenitor of this idea, and we have you to thank for it, I suppose, right?
I suppose so.
And so what happens in workflow DocuSign is one person has to sign and then the next person, and it has to go in order. True?
Yes, sir.
Didn't exist before you. Yes?
It existed in hard copy, but not electronic copy.
Jeff Mateer told you to sign this contract. Yes?
Yes, sir, he did.
Not Ken Paxton. Jeff Mateer told you to sign this contract with Brandon CAMAC, right?
In my conversations with Jeff,
No one but Jeff Mateer told you to sign this contract, right? Right?
Jeff Mateer was the only person that I spoke to about signing the contract.
Ken Paxton didn't cause you or compel you to sign it, did he?
No, sir.
Your conversation with Mateer, in fact, was, and I quote, "We need to keep this on as short of a leash as possible because we don't want it running away." True?
No, sir. That's not true.
Well, fortunately, we have your transcript.
I
Mr.
think-
President, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Mr. President, I am not moving for admission of this transcript as I do not think it will be necessary. The purpose of this is impeachment only.
May I inquire, excuse me, go ahead. May I inquire if you intend to introduce the entire document?
I do not. I just said that. I don't intend to introduce it as an exhibit. I intend to use it for impeachment purposes only.
I have nothing. Thank you, Judge.
Continue.
If you would, turn to page 105 of your transcript. I'm going to bring it up as well. We're not going to put it on the screen because I don't think we'll need to do that. Can you find page 105?
I am on the transcript page of 105. Yes, sir.
Read for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what you testified to the House Board
Counselor, hold on one second. My transcript is down. I'm just trying to get it back up. Hold on. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Read, if you would, Mr. Vassar, to the ladies and gentlemen of this jury, the testimony that you gave to the House Board of Managers beginning at page 105, line 24, and read until page 106, line 4.
So it says, and my conversations with Mateer, similar to the qualifications, the expertise, the experience between the two potential people, along those same lines was, quote, we need to keep this on as short of a leash as possible because we don't want it running away, close quote.
And you had that conversation with Jeff Mateer, didn't you?
I had several conversations with Mr. Mateer.
Yeah, non-responsive.
Sustained.
Had that conversation with Mr. Mateer, didn't you?
Yes, I had a conversation with Mr. Mateer, but at no point did I say...
Yeah, non-responsive.
Excuse me, please be allowed to respond to his question.
Overruled.
True.
Can you repeat the question to me?
You had the conversation that you described here in your testimony to the House Board of Managers with Mr. Mateer, yes?
Yes, sir, I had a conversation.
Thank you. And you made an intentional decision to bring Brandon Kamak on as, I believe you put it, a third set of eyes. Yes?
No, sir, I didn't make the decision. I provided a recommendation and a legal justification to do so.
If you look at page 106, lines 5 through 11, what you say is, so I drafted the scope of work for the contract. You're talking about Kamak's contract.
Pardon me, Your Honor. May we approach the bench, please?
Yes, you may. I think the two of you have come to agreement of moving forward.
We have, I think.
In a proper way.
Mr. Hardin will let me know if I mess up.
Members of the jury, come to order.
So, Mr. Vassar, the plan was to bring on Mr. Kamak as, I believe you put it, a third set of eyes. True?
That was my understanding.
Well, tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, who were the other two sets of eyes?
I didn't have any specifically, other than Director Maxwell and Mark Penley, I presume, as the two individuals.
And you... Did I cut you off?
I'm sorry, we're speaking.
Did I cut you off?
No, sir.
Okay. You anticipated Brandon Kamak providing a report to your office, true?
I did.
And you testified that the Brandon Kamak contract never got to the controller, Michelle Price, true?
That's right. At the time, I don't believe it had.
So, just to be clear, you testified before the House Board of Managers that Brandon Kamak's contract never got to the controller, Michelle Price, true?
That was my recollection.
But you were wrong about that, weren't you?
I don't know.
Let's bring up Exhibit AG 130. I believe it's already in evidence. If you can find that for me, Mr. Arroyo. Right there, okay. Would you just highlight the signature blocks for me or zoom in on the signature blocks? Michelle Price, the controller, approved it, yes?
I see that.
So this contract had the money.
I'm sorry, had a what?
It had the money allocated if Michelle Price signed it, true?
Yes, it appears she signed it after I did.
But in the rushed impeachment in this case, you told the House Board of Managers that she never signed it, true?
She had not signed it before I signed it. That was my testimony, as I recall.
Yeah, at the time you gave your testimony to the House Board of Managers, you didn't know. And now you know, right?
Well, yes, I see now that she has signed it.
Leslie French, who's that?
At the time, she was general counsel.
She approved the choice of Brandon Kamak as outside counsel, true?
Yes, she initialed this as indicating approval.
I want to talk briefly about grants, okay? You familiar with applying for federal grants?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury who may not understand the inside baseball of that, why on earth would the wonderful state of Texas need to apply for federal grants for OAG funding?
Well, there are a number of programs that the office administers, such as child support, crime victim services, that are supplemented by state funds, state grants, as well as federal funding.
And where does the money come from?
Well, in each instance, it comes from state appropriations and also federal grant programs.
And does your office have to apply for them with the federal government?
I believe so. There might be one or two instances where there are statutory grants under the federal statutes, but I think most of them are application-based.
And you were responsible for applying for those grants, true?
No, sir. The grants division of the office was responsible for applying.
But you were overseeing them?
No, sir. That's a division that reported to Lacey Mays.
Okay. As part of the Office of General Counsel, or by October 2020, what was your title at the agency?
Deputy for Legal Counsel.
Okay. And so you're giving isn't it true that you gave the Office of the Attorney General legal advice about those grants?
Yes.
Okay. I think I'm over the target now, finally. So my understanding is, correct me if I'm wrong, in October 2020, after you had so-called blown the whistle with your friends, you were still providing legal advice to the Office of Attorney General about grant applications to the federal government, yes?
Yes, sir.
And one of the reservations that you expressed was that the Office of the Attorney General might have some problems applying for federal grants because Ken Paxton was under indictment. True?
That was an issue that came to my mind. Yes, sir.
He was under indictment the whole time you worked there, right?
I'm not sure when it occurred, but I believe that's probably true.
And every other year before October of 2020, you didn't provide that advice to the Office of the Attorney General, true?
That's right.
And in fact, if Ken Paxton was not allowed to sign those grant applications, it might have cost the Attorney General's office between $1 and $10 million in federal money. True?
I don't know the specific numbers, but yes, if we were prohibited as an agency from participating in the federal grant program because of an ongoing indictment or conviction for felony that was prohibited under those federal programs, and it could cost the agency.
So after you blew the whistle on September 30th of 2020, your advice about those grants changed, right?
No, sir.
You were advising the Attorney General's office about this all the way on from before that?
No. What you asked is, did my advice change? The answer is no. I didn't provide advice one way or the other that had changed from the previous years.
Okay. Did you advise the Attorney General's office on those grants before October of 2020?
On the specific grants that...
The federal money, that the $1 to $10 million is supposed to be coming to the state of Texas to help the AG's office.
Right.
Did you provide any advice about that before October of 2020?
Not. So just to clarify your question, these grants are typically on a 2-year cycle in most instances. So each time we would consider those a separate grant. So when you ask if I provided advice on these grants, historically, I would have advised on the legal nature of participating in these grant programs at different years.
Did you ever raise your concerns about the Attorney General's being indicted for securities fraud over the last 8 years to anyone before October of 2020?
I don't recall so.
I need to circle back with you and clean something up on the Public Information Act stuff that we talked about yesterday, okay? I want to make sure I have this right, because I think we may have made a mistake, you and I together, or I may have made the mistake and elicited testimony that was not correct. I want to make sure, okay? You remember the 3 requests we talked about yesterday, right?
Yes,
Okay.
the securities board, the big request, the FBI brief.
The FBI brief. So on the FBI brief, yesterday I believe I elicited testimony from you that the FBI blew their response deadline, but that wasn't right, was it?
I think is what I testified yesterday is I don't recall exactly what the circumstances were regarding the response deadline or any response that we had requested.
What actually happened is the FBI responded when that unredacted brief was requested, but their arguments were so nonsensical or non-responsive to the issue that your opinions division, which is under your oversight, made the decision to release the unredacted brief. True?
I don't recall what the brief said, the FBI's response to the request for the FBI brief itself. I don't recall what the FBI's position was or what the division issued. Just to put it in context, my youngest was born May 30th of 2020.
Okay.
So I was working out of the office, and at that time, if you recall, the DPS request, the big request, was issued June 2nd. So toward May 30th for the month of June, most of those conversations were directly with Ryan Vassar.
Okay, so is it true that you can't tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury why the unredacted brief was released?
The unredacted FBI brief was released because General Paxton directed us to release it.
And tell me about what that process was.
Well, in a meeting with General Paxton, at which Ryan Vassar was attending, we identified that the agency, the Office of the Attorney General, had received a request for public information for the FBI brief. General Paxton asked us to provide him a copy of the redacted brief and the unredacted brief.
Yes?
A few days later, we met again, and General Paxton had reviewed it, had marked up the copies, and indicated to both of us that he had seen nothing that should be withheld from Nate Paul.
Did you disagree with him?
Yes, just based on the content of the information.
Was there any claim of law enforcement privilege made by the FBI?
I'm not advised. Again, I don't recall what their brief said.
You don't recall any of the content of what the FBI said in their challenge?
Not in the challenge, no, sir. I recall the content of the FBI brief that was submitted as part of the DPS file.
Okay. I'm going to show you a few other documents, okay? We're going to go to stay on the same topic. This is Exhibit AG 185, Your Honor, if I might approach.
You may.
Have you had an opportunity to review Exhibit AG 185?
Yes, sir.
What is it?
It's a letter dated April 13th, 2020 from the Department of Public Safety to Joseph Larson regarding a public information request referenced as 20-0983.
And Mr. Arroyo, if you'd bring up Exhibit AG 185. Thank you so much.
Pardon me.
Counselor, are you offering this?
I am. I thought I did. I'm sorry. Exhibit AG 185, we move for admission, Mr. President.
Mr. Hardin?
So I have no objection, but I request that we don't put it up on the easel and pass until we get a ruling, please. Thank you so much.
Agreed.
I agree. Now,
And-
Mr. Arroyo, please.
And Mr. Counselor, since we did break for a half hour earlier, that was kind of our 10:30 break, so we'll go to 12, about 40 minutes, and then we'll have lunch from 12 to 1.
Understood, Judge. Thank you. This is a response from DPS to the big request, right?
It appears to be. I don't recall the exact number of the request, but it appears to be.
So Joe Larson is the vehicle that Nate Paul is using to make these requests, yes?
It was my understanding, that's right.
And then the lawsuit that Joe Larson filed, he filed that on behalf of Nate Paul, true?
Well, that lawsuit that you showed me yesterday, it identified Mr. Larson as the plaintiff. I don't know why he would have filed it or what reasons he had.
Ultimately, the unredacted FBI brief was released from a lawyer at the Attorney General's office to a lawyer, Joe Larson, who is working for Nate Paul. True?
I believe so.
No one at the Attorney General's office tried to stop it from going out, did they?
Except for our conversations with General Paxton, I don't think anybody stopped it after he instructed us to release it.
But you didn't have any good legal reason to keep it, did you?
I'm not sure what you mean by legal reason to keep it.
You're a lawyer. Did you have a good legal reason to keep it?
Well, we had reasons to believe that the information contained in the brief itself involved law enforcement information under the Public Information Act, because, as you mentioned yesterday, the FBI redacted it.
But the FBI didn't assert law enforcement privilege over the brief, did it?
Again, I don't recall what their position was in their briefing that they submitted, just because...
You don't know?
That's right.
Okay. Your Honor, I've got another exhibit. May I approach the witness?
Yes, you may.
Have you seen Exhibit AG 253 before?
Yes, sir.
What is it?
This is a...
Are you offering this?
I was going to lay the predicate first, but I will certainly offer it.
Excuse me, Your Honor. Thank you. We have no objections, but speed it up.
Exhibit 253, admitted to evidence. Continue.
Thank you. Mr. Arroyo, if you would, Exhibit AG 253. Mr. Vassar, what is it?
This is a letter involving private schools in the middle of COVID-19. It's dated July 17th of 2020.
And Attorney General Ken Paxton issued this guidance, correct?
Yes, he signed it, and we issued it from the office.
And it is not a formal legal opinion, correct?
No, it's not a formal opinion decided under 402.
Okay. Did you have kids in a religious school at that time?
No, sir.
Okay. The purpose of this guidance was what?
To provide guidance on how religious private schools could operate in the face of local orders that may contradict the governor's executive orders at the time.
Pretty important stuff, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
And orders like this orders similar to this that were giving informal legal guidance about COVID matters were coming out of your office almost every day. True?
I'm not sure if it was daily, but we were providing advice on a regular basis.
All right. You recall the quote-unquote midnight opinion. I believe Mr. Hardin referred to it as the midnight opinion, the foreclosure guidance.
I recall it. Yes, sir.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
That wasn't even the only COVID guidance issued that day, was it?
I don't recall that specifically either.
Thank you.
Mr. President, we move for admission of Exhibit AG 7.
Mr. Hardin?
I was trying to get my microphone on. I'm sorry. We have no objection, Your Honor.
Admit exhibit number 7 into evidence.
Have you seen, no, that's not AG 7, this is 260. Will you put AG 7, please, Mr. Arroyo? Thank you, Eric. Eric, would you just would you zoom in on the letterhead here? This is the letterhead of the Office of the Attorney General of the state of Texas. True?
I wouldn't state that it's the only letterhead of the Office of the Attorney General, just based on my previous testimony.
Well, we'll see how common it is in a minute. This is the letterhead that went out on formal statements, legal guidance, and formal legal opinions. True?
Yes, it was used in those instances.
All right. This Exhibit AG7 was sent to a man named Brian Mookie, who's of the city of Headwood Village. Do you know where the city of Headwood Village is?
No, sir.
It's in the Houston area, but let's zoom out a little bit. Give me to the text, Eric, if you would. And capture Austin's signature too. I'm sorry, sir. What's this about?
This is the first time I've seen this letter that I can recall. It is issued under Section 418.193, which is the Disaster Act. It appears to be in response to a question that the mayor had asked about a local health authority's power to close schools.
And Austin Kinghorn works for you, true?
Yes, sir, at the time.
And you knew this was going out, right?
No, sir.
Why not?
Just based on the substance, this seems more like a pro forma response that doesn't need to be raised to the deputy level to make a decision. This seems to be consistent with advice that we had already issued, and it was essentially reiterating that advice and not taking a contrary statement.
Okay, so Austin, this was a minor enough issue that Austin could do this on his own, right?
No. So Austin worked in the general counsel division. That division chief is responsible for that division. I oversaw that division in addition to other divisions. So I did not have a daily oversight of the activities of that division.
He's in your downline, true?
Yes, sir.
What's the date on this?
August 1st of 2020.
That's a Saturday, isn't it?
Possibly. I don't recall what day that would have fallen on.
It's the same Saturday as the foreclosure guidance, true?
If that was a Saturday, then yes, it would have been the same day.
Well, you know the foreclosure guidance is dated August 1, right?
I don't recall if it's dated August 1. It might be August 2nd.
Isn't it true, sir, that there were so many needs in this big state related to guidance about COVID that your office was working on it constantly?
It was a perpetual theme.
Let's see how perpetual it is. May I approach the witness?
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
We move for admission of Exhibit AG 260.
Give Mr. Harden a moment.
I have no objection.
Admit Exhibit 260 into evidence.
Thank you. Mr. Arroyo, if you would. Same letterhead, yes?
Yes, sir. It's the same as the August 1st letter.
July 28, 2020, 3 days earlier, yes?
Yes, sir.
And who's Doug Sveen? Hope I'm saying that right.
This letter indicates he's the mayor of Stephenville, Texas.
He's asking about closure of schools, right?
That's right.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
I'm going to try to do this in bulk and maybe move this along a little bit. Your Your Honor, we move for admission of AG Exhibits 259 and 6.
We have no objection, and we have no objection to 289, and we have no objection to Exhibit 6.
Admit Exhibit 6 and 259 into evidence.
Mr. Arroyo, Exhibit 259, please. Who's Craig Morgan?
This letter refers to him as the mayor of Round Rock.
That's on a Thursday before August 1st, right?
Sure.
What's it about?
This is appears to be the city of Round Rock's decision to move its local election from November 3rd of 2020 to May of 2021.
Why do they want to move it?
I think the reason that they had stated was because of COVID.
Who issued the opinion?
It was signed by General Paxton.
Does it have a KP number?
No, sir.
Not a formal legal opinion, true?
No, it was not issued as a formal opinion under 402.
Mr. Arroyo, Exhibit 6, please. AG Exhibit 6. August 3, Monday. Who's the Honorable Vince Ryan?
The Harris County Attorney.
This is a formal legal opinion, yes?
Yes, this is a formal opinion issued under Chapter 402.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury how they can tell by looking at this document that it's a formal legal opinion.
After the mailing address, there is an opinion number that's referenced. And then in the subject line, there is a request number that's also referenced.
And every formal legal opinion from the Office of the Attorney General under Chapter 402 of the Government Code has both. True?
Yes.
And what's this letter about?
It's regarding the county authority to require masks in courtrooms, courthouses, and county buildings.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. July 28th, July 30th, August 1, August 1, August 3. There are opinions coming out almost every day about COVID stuff during this period of time, true?
Well, again, to clarify, a lot of the questions that we would get would follow the governor's executive orders, which were coming out in different points. So if an executive order was issued, the frequency of our requests for advice might increase. I can't testify that we were releasing information daily. I don't know if that's actually true, but I can't say it was happening regularly just with the pattern of executive orders or mayoral or county orders.
Isn't it true that the office was constantly adapting to the executive orders of the governor's office, the executive orders of President Donald J. Trump?
Absolutely.
And that actually increased the amount of informal legal advice and the need for it on a literally day-to-day basis.
Well, again, it was very frequent, just given the number of agencies that were involved on a state level as well as the federal level.